Hey everybody, on the show this week we have a very special guest. Becky Rule is in the house. We have that to get to and a lot more. It all starts right now with What's Happening Deerfield. Hello again everyone and welcome to What's Happening Deerfield, the show that brings you the people, places and events of New Hampshire's finest town. My name is Joe Manzi, alongside as always Eric Almeida. Eric, a big show to get to this week.
Yeah, we have a lot going on this week, and I know you were able to have a chance to sit down with Becky Rule, who will be at the gym on the 27th this coming month. And so you got to talk to her for quite a long time.
Yeah, we had a great time. Becky's awesome. I mean, obviously those who know her, I don't have to say too much. Those who don't, hopefully be familiar with her from both our interview and the big show coming up. Becky is giving her time to our fundraiser on January 27th, which is the big Tim Sample and Becky Rule show at the Deerfield Community School. And on January 27th, tickets are still available. It's a 6 o'clock show, doors open at 5. Check the number on the screen to get a hold of us to get tickets. But she's giving her time. This is a fundraiser for the Joe Stone Good Sports Scholarship Fund. She's awesome. This is a show that's going to bring together the best of Maine and New Hampshire humor, all under the umbrella of Yankee humor. And Becky does a great job of spelling out exactly what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And I know you basically went over all the details about tickets and prices and stuff, so we'll wait to touch upon that through the interview. And then we also have, I've been pretty busy this past few weeks.
Oh, you've been busy.
Yeah, attending hip-hop and basketball clinics and Tai Chi and yoga, and I could go on and on.
What do you need, a nap?
I do kind of feel like right now
all right,
I could use a nap.
After the show. Get through the show.
So we're going to start off with the interview and end with some really good footage from just basically a collection from all different programs. And
you also have the community calendar coming, I hope?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
And the community calendar we will have coming up a little later.
Okay.
So.
All right, so when we get to my interview with Becky?
Yep.
Excellent.
To the interview.
And here we are back on What's Happening Deerfield with noted New Hampshire humorist, author, teacher, etc., Becky Rule. First, welcome and thanks for being here on the show.
I'm happy to be here, Joe.
And I want to ask you, because you've done a lot of TV work, how impressed are you with our plush but not overly ostentatious studio and our overall production of the show?
It's elegant. It's elegant. I like the balls, the color.
The camera,
the color is beautiful. Yeah. You know, it's just not too much, just enough.
Well, we're very excited to have it. We did a couple of extra decorations, hoping that you would agree with everything.
Thank you.
So obviously, one of the big things we want to talk about is you're part of a great show we're going to be having right in Deerfield. Yeah, a little drum roll on the 27th of January with Maine humorist Tim Sample. We're going to get to all that, but one, I just want to say, you know, we're real excited about that show happening. And,
I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time.
Tim is one of the best-known Maine humorists, and he draws a big crowd, and it's just an honor to be with him or to be on the stage before him.
Well, and to be honest with you, and I guess we'll talk, we'll get right to the show stuff, and then we have a lot of stuff we want to get to, but the thing I can say honestly is it's bringing together two different crowds as well, because we get people specifically who contact me for tickets and say the Becky Rule show, and they've never seen Tim, and we get some Tim and haven't seen you, and that's an opportunity for a new audience, and it's bringing to me the best of New Hampshire humor with the best of Maine humor. So I guess I'll pick it up on that point and say, what do you think the differences are? One, maybe between Maine and New Hampshire in general. Is it just they become allies against Massachusetts? Or is there a difference in the style of humor between the two? What do you see as the differences?
I call it all Yankee humor. Yeah. I call it Yankee humor, and it's really northern New England. Maine, the delivery, well, Maine really comes out of that tradition of Bert and I. Yep. And, you know, Bert and I, Bob Bryan and Marshall Dodge, who in 1958 put out a record called Bert and I, and brought Yankee humor to the rest of the world. It was a great seller, and then they brought out some other records. And I know that Tim is associated with Bert and I think he might have done a record with them.
Yeah, with the company. Bert and I became basically an entity in a company.
He comes out of that Bert and I tradition. And that tradition is the down east tradition, which is the slow talker.
Yeah.
With just a few words. Can't get there from here. Does it make any difference whether I take I-95 to Portland or go up Route 1? Not to me, it don't. So it's that slow pace, and also the very dry, you know, never, they say that Marshall Dodge never cracked a smile on stage except for one time. A fella got laughing so hard in an aisle seat, he fell right out of his chair into the aisle, and they say, at that moment, Marshall Dodge on stage twitched. So Tim comes out of that tradition, and so do I. I mean, I was brought up on Bert and I, but the humor that I heard growing up and that I hear in New Hampshire is a little quicker, We use a few more words. We don't say wicked quite as much. Of course, that's Massachusetts too, wicked.
Sure.
Somebody said, Becky, I didn't even know people in New Hampshire had an accent. I said, my gosh, we're between Maine and Massachusetts.
Yeah.
What do you expect? We do.
Sure.
We do. So it's sort of, I think a little modified, but it's definitely out of that same tradition.
Yeah, as you say, all under the Yankee humor.
It's all under Yankee humor.
Yeah, and it's family friendly. I know that listening to some of the stuff, even with my kids, because I wasn't sure, because there are those nuances, and as you say, very subtle and sort of like everybody's in on the joke, but you're just presenting as you see it, as you know, so it can be very subtle, but my kids...
it's very family friendly.
Yeah, they really enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, we're Yankees, we're reserved.
Yeah.
You know, we don't like to talk about private things.
Right, exactly.
You know, that would be embarrassing for us. So we talk about other things like selectmen and fishing and things like that.
The simple things of life.
The simple thing, or lobsters and you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, let's move to some other things, and that is I want to talk about, obviously, you know, you have a collection. We're fortunate enough to have some of your published works here at the table with us. Yes, there goes one head with the rhubarb. We have Live Free and Eat Pie, of course.
I find my books.
There you go, right in.
That's
Excellent.
how you know they're mine. When I work with kids, I say, look, I'm on this book. That's how you know.
There it is.
Oh.
No mistaking it. And your most recent work, talking about kids, is a children's book. I know you're very proud of that, and should be. It's a wonderful story. I'll get you to talk a little bit more about it.
This is my 10th book, and it's my first book for children. I've been trying to write for children all along, but it's a very tough market. I mean, for one thing, the publisher has to invest in an illustrator. The illustrations take at least a year. It's a long process, and they do hardcover. So it's a big investment for the publisher, so they really have to know that this book is going to work. So I wrote and wrote and wrote, and finally I was able to write a story that was good enough for kids.
Wonderful. Now, okay, so I didn't realize that. So you didn't have a say necessarily in the illustrator. That's a collaboration that you just provide your piece, but you're obviously very pleased with how it worked out.
I am very pleased. Typically, I mean, by contract, the writer almost never has a say in the illustrator and who the illustrator is. The publisher chooses, and they really don't want you to talk because because they don't want me telling Jennifer Therms, who is my illustrator, oh, I don't like this is not what that's not how I pictured it, and because that could get. I'm not an illustrator. I don't know about that. So the only thing I saw was early on they sent me this little picture, and I thought it's perfect. Look at them. Look at the action.
So you provided them with a basic theme of the story, and then they sent the picture?
I had written the whole story.
The whole story.
I wrote the whole story and edited it with my editor. And then they sent the story off to Jennifer, and a year later, she has painted these. She does pencil and watercolor, and she's done these paintings, and then they make them into a book. Yeah,
it really is a beautiful book and a great story. Talk a little bit about the story, how it came to be, how long you've been sitting on it or thinking about it, or your own experiences.
I wrote a version of this story years ago. As a kind of a little essay about sledding, a little memory kind of thing. And it started, in my family, there are lots of stories about the old Travis sled, which is, a lot of people in New England call a big sled a Travis. and I think it goes back to the French travois,
Okay.
a sled for hauling, and maybe even a Native American notion. And so we always talked about the Travis sled and the adventures that my mom and dad and their sisters and brothers had sliding in Danbury, New Hampshire.
Okay.
And usually it resulted in a big crash at the bottom or somebody falling off. And since I've been reading this story to people, you know, adults love this story, older people love this story.
Can relate to
and
that,
they
sure.
remember. They'll say, oh, we had one of those, or my dad made one of those. And then they'll start the story and say, and then 2 of us had to go to the hospital. Good memories.
Sure, absolutely.
But my favorite picture is this one, and it was I think I made it up. I'm not sure. It's hard to know when you're a fiction writer what
Yeah,
you
can you
make
turn
up.
that around for just a
I
second
want
and
to
describe
show
it? Yeah,
this,
show that on the
but it's the story that these kids have an idea because the once in a while this happens. The sleet follows the snow, and it makes a really thick crust. Not often, but when that happens, you can just about skate on the crust. It's great for sledding. You can sled anywhere. And so I remembered as a kid having that experience. My friend Patty, who's in this book, says it was 1962. I don't know how she remembers that. Well, she said, oh, that was the year my brother Dougie broke his wrist sliding behind your house back. And I'm like, oh yeah, I do remember that. So it's that special occurrence when the sleet follows the snow. And so I had this notion that you could go so fast through the town, and Grandpa Bud tells this story to the kids because it's his sled, that you start from Grandpa Bud's house at the stroke of noon, and you slide all the way through. You go through the covered bridge, and you go past the church, and you go around there, and you pass the town hall, and you spin to a stop in the snowbank by the gazebo before the bell stops ringing. So it's bong, bong, and they go shh. And then he says, of course it took the rest of the afternoon to hike back up. So that's sort of where it comes from.
Sure.
So the kids in the story hear that, and they go in search of the iciest, diciest, scariest sled ride ever, and they find it. So that's the story.
Now, where have you had a chance to do readings and present this?
Well, I've been having a wonderful time. It was launched at the Milton Farm Museum, which is, well, it's the New Hampshire Farm Museum in Milton, and they're home to the Uncle Sam, which is the world's longest sled. It's in the Guinness Book of World Records. It was made by Harvey Pearl, and it was 77 feet long. It could seat 70 adults or 100 children.
Wow.
And once in a while, they would take it out on the streets of I guess it must have been Farmington, Milton, one of those towns up there, and they would go right down, or maybe it must have been Milton, Farmington where it was.
Yep.
They would go down the streets of Farmington, and everybody would pile on. They'd close the streets,
Wow.
and they would go for a ride. So it's huge. It's in 4 parts. And they put them all together, and they have it in the barn up there. So we thought, wouldn't it be great to launch this book with the big sled,
Yeah.
the biggest sled in the world? So that's what we did. And the kids sat on, all the kids came and they sat on the sled and got
great.
their pictures taken.
Wow.
And that's when Jennifer and I met. And
Okay.
we read the book, and she showed the pictures, and it was great fun. And my first experience at the end of the very first reading that day, a little boy said, I loved it.
That's great. And that has to be, I mean, obviously you've had a lot of published works and
Yeah.
done a lot of writing, but that had to be something a little bit different feel, just to
Really
just to
special.
look at the book and
It's
hold it and
really-
everything else. It's
well,
really exciting.
I love picture books. They
Yeah.
really are works of art. And when you combine words with visuals, each tells its own story. So
Yeah.
it's bigger, than the sum of its parts. And I think Jennifer's pictures really tell their own story. For example, I never mention a dog. There's no dog in my book.
Okay.
However, there is a dog on every page in this book. Where'd that dog come from? It's Jennifer's dog.
Okay, sure.
So we decided to give the dog a name. We
nice.
called him Chipper.
Nice.
And my next book that I'm working on right now is going to be called Chipper Knows the Way. Because when kids read this book, the first thing they notice is the dog. They're all, on every page, they're looking for the
Right,
dog.
right.
Oh, there's the dog. So that was Jennifer's story.
So would you say then that the process, you kind of have the bug now for children's book?
I would be happy to write nothing but children's books for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
For one thing, they're really short.
Yeah, yeah.
Look at this honka.
And they have a lot of pictures. Right, that's a lot of words, not a lot of pictures there.
337 pages.
And you have to write every single word on there.
I know.
It's not easy.
That takes a long time.
I can imagine. I've never written one, but I can imagine
you
that.
know, you got to sit in a chair for hours on end. You got to do a lot of research, and you got to type till your fingers bleed.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, I can imagine. And what about the publishers? What's the feedback you receive from them? Are they
They're-
already involved in your next project?
Well, I've been
Chipper and so
dropping
forth?
broad hints.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
I've
sure.
been mentioning this in a lot of interviews. Dean at Islandport Press. Hi, it's me, Becky Rule. Would you like to publish my next book? Because I'd really like you to. Thanks.
That's subtle, but
You
I
have
think
to
it's
be
a point
subtle.
across.
You don't
Yes.
want to be too pushy.
I understand.
You know, you've got to negotiate these things.
Absolutely. Now, beside the show that we have coming up, obviously on the 27th, what are some other things you have going on? Appearances you're going to be at, places you're going to be? I know you have some more TV stuff come up. In fact, even on the 27th, I think you might have some TV stuff happening.
Oh, I do. I should have brought my calendar because I make it a point never to think more than a day ahead.
I don't blame you.
But, you know, it's like I would get frightened.
I'm impressed you can do that far ahead. I've tried that.
But I get the day that we're doing Tim Sample, I'm recording a show for New Hampshire Public Television. I do a series called the New Hampshire Authors Series. And we do just 3 a year, but we're now up to 25, do the math. We've been doing it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm interviewing Joe Moninger, who's a writer from Plymouth, who does adult novels, and he does novels for young adults, and also memoir. He's written a load of books, probably at least 20, and he's a wonderful writer, and I'm really excited to talk with. He's very articulate also about the process.
Yep.
So Joe Moninger will be next up.
And you as well go to schools frequently and talk about writing. What's some of the message that you bring there when you go to different schools and talk about writing?
You know, whether I'm at a school or anywhere else, sometimes I talk to seniors, you know, I talk to lots of different people, but what I've learned, the most important thing I've learned about writing is that what we bring to the page is ourselves and our experience. You know, the story, sometimes I will do a little trick, I have a little trick I do, like I bring an egg, and I say, okay, let's all write about the egg. Just write one sentence about the egg. And the kids will write one sentence about the egg, and then I mix them all up. And I said, I'm going to read this sentence, and you tell me who wrote it. I read a sentence, they say, well, Judy wrote that. Well, how do you know that? Because it's Judy. That's her outlook, you know. She saw the egg a certain way. And that's all we bring. We can all, you know, anybody, this story is, some kids want to go sledding, it's crusty, they go up a mountain and slide down. That's the story. It's not that interesting. Anybody, if you wrote that story, it would be a completely different story.
Oh, that's
than
for
this
sure.
one.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and I mean, there are only so many stories in the world, but there are infinite number of voices, and that's what's important, is to put yourself on the page, to be true to your own voice. And kids, you know, whether they're 5 or seniors at, you know, 87, understand that, and that's the most important message. And that's, I think, what I had to learn in order to write a children's book, because I believe that my earlier tries were sort of filtered through the lens of, well, what's a children's book supposed to be like? Oh, it's supposed to rhyme, maybe, or it's supposed to have a lot of repetition, and so I wasn't really allowing my own voice to come through. And in this book, it's, you know, I hope that people will pick it up and say, oh, that's a Becky Rule book. And just as much as this is a Becky Rule book, or this is a Becky Rule book.
Right.
And why did it take me 30 years to figure that out? I'm telling you now, Joe, so you don't have to wait that long.
Trying to wait that long process? Okay, I appreciate it. I'll take any tips I can get.
But, you know, you have to learn it. You have to. It's one thing to hear it, it's another thing to believe it, and to bring it into practice.
Well, we hope to see all of these books, and of course the iciest, diciest, scariest sled ride ever is also very current, as we're in the winter. There's plenty of snow right now and plenty of sledding.
Snow.
So it makes a nice motivator for the families to pick this up and read it, and then want to get out there and be involved in their own sled rides.
Sure is.
And so we hope all of these will be available on the night of the 27th for families.
And I'll even do
purchase
touching
as well.
personal inscriptions.
Wonderful.
Touching, and I'm sure Tim has CDs and so forth, and
a lot of
I know
stuff as
he's
well.
got some books too, so he'll be bringing some stuff, so it's a good chance to stock up.
Excellent. And now we talk a little bit more about the 27th, the January 27th. What should people expect who are coming to the show that evening?
Well, they're going to expect some Deerfield hospitality.
That's for
And
sure.
all the folks from Deerfield are going to be there, have to welcome them. I'm going to do about 20 minutes of New Hampshire stories, mostly New Hampshire stories, and they'll be funny, I hope. That's my intention. You know, sometimes when people don't laugh, I just wait.
There you go.
They'll laugh eventually.
Yes.
And then after that, Tim will come on, and he's a pro. He will deliver the brand of Maine humor, and I think we're going to laugh a lot. And you know, in this room, I'm reminded that one good belly laugh is equal to 10 minutes on the treadmill.
That is good to know, and like you say, yeah, it is very clear in this room. Yes, good reminder for you. Yeah, I mean, we're certainly looking forward to it. Again, the tickets are still available for the show on the 27th. You know, we carefully, this is one of these no excuse dates. Now, if we had it on the day of the Super Bowl, some people would try to come up with some excuses. This is a carefully selected Sunday, football-free, family-friendly time, people of all ages. The doors will open at 5. The show begins at 6.
At
Again,
6
Becky,
so you
followed
don't
by
have
Tim
to stay out
Sample.
too late.
No, not too late on a Sunday evening. We thought of every possible excuse people could have.
Will there be tickets at the door?
There'll be tickets at the door as well.
Because it's a big hall.
It's a big hall, yep, and there'll be tickets at the door. It's at the Deerfield Community School.
So it's a big hall.
It's a big hall, but yeah, we're going to have.
But don't wait to get your tickets because they could sell out.
They could, and there is an advance incentive as well in the prices. But all the information's on the screen to get a hold of our office to get your tickets in advance. Again, it's Sunday, January 27th is the show. And I also want to tell people about Moose of Humor.
Moose, the website?
Yes.
I have a new website.
Okay, well, please share that.
The moose is dead.
Oh,
the moose is
long
died.
live the moose.
Long live the moose. But my new website is RebeccaRuleNH.com. That
Okay.
stands for Rebecca Rule, New Hampshire.
And you're probably impressed as you're watching, if you watch this show, how as soon as you say it, it appears magically on the screen.
It appears magically on the
That's
screen.
one of our tricks with a little inside
did you
TV
do
trick.
that?
Well, we
How
don't
did
like to
you
share
do
all
that?
the tricks, just as I'm
That
sure
great
you know.
big camera is a little scary to me.
Again, we go all out of the production around here for this show. As you can tell,
You're doing a great job.
seen this too.
You're
Well,
doing a great job.
we certainly enjoyed having you here today.
But
and
you
again,
shouldn't be so nervous, Joe, really.
No?
No, just
I have to work
relax.
on it. I have to calm down, relax, breathe, namaste.
Namaste.
Everything I have to possibly do to get through it. Becky, we want to thank you so much for being here. More importantly, we want to thank you for giving your time. It is a fundraiser for our scholarship fund. I know you knew Joe Stone, and the reason we have
I am delighted to do it. I am, and I'm delighted to be on the same stage that will hold the little feats of Tim Sample.
There you go.
Because he's a big hero of mine.
Thank you. Again, great to have you be a part of it. So everybody, make sure you get your tickets and you're there on Sunday, January 27th. The big show features Becky Rule and Tim Sample, the best of New Hampshire and Maine humor. We need to see everybody there again. Benefits our scholarship fund, the Joe Stone Good Sport Scholarship Fund, which provides athletic scholarships so that every child can play, and also high school scholarships. So we hope to see you on the 27th. And Becky, thanks again for being here.
You're very welcome.
We'll be right back with more in just a moment. All right, thanks once again to Becky Rule. We really enjoyed that segment, having her. Our biggest star to date, I'd say. Just don't tell Alex Cody I said that. She was our biggest star today.
Well, he can insulted.
Yeah, he's used to it. He can handle it. And at this time, it's time for everyone's favorite segment of the show. It's time for Erica's Community Calendar.
Okay, Deerfield, here we go. We have Cool Sports meeting on Sundays at the DCS gym. We start our second session meeting date this coming Sunday, and that's from 11:30 to 12:30. We have Cookie Clubhouse, which was our first day today. We had an excellent turnout. I think pretty much over 12 or 13 kids. And that's at the town hall from 9 to 10, and that's on Thursdays. Events that we have coming up, we have the Deerfield night at the Rockingham Ballroom. That's this coming Saturday, I'm sorry, January 19th. And that's, the doors open at 7. It goes from 7 to 11. It's also being catered by Panzanella's in Newmarket. We have tickets still being sold, and the Manzi Trio Band will be performing there at the ballroom as well for our enjoyment. We have Sunday, which our big show is revolving all around our Tim Sample and Rebecca Rule show, and that will be Sunday, January 27th. And like Joe had mentioned earlier, tickets are still for sale, and you do get some sort of discount for buying them in advance, so please take advantage of that. We have Saturday, February 23rd, coming up, our first winter carnival here in Deerfield. And we have lots of different events and games and competitions planned for that day. Ice or snow sculptures, an all-day bonfire, sled races, snowball throws. And that's actually being kicked off with a fireman's dinner on Friday night. And so that would be the February 22nd, that Friday. And we'll have more information coming to you about that. We have our Celtics bus trip, Sunday, February 10th. We still have tickets for sale, so get those. They're going very quickly. We have Foxwoods trip, which is also a coach bus trip on April 7th. That's a Sunday. And we have Red Sox versus Angels coach bus trip, and that is Sunday, June 9th. So those are kind of more of your, far events coming up. And so that is it for our community calendar this coming week. And as we close, we are going to, like I said previously, end with some footage of particularly Tai Chi with Lin Lin, and that meets at Sundays. And I was able to go over there and see kind of what she did, and we have some good sword action in that footage.
You can always appreciate that.
I was pretty impressed, I have to say. I'd never seen anything like it.
Were there any watermelons involved? Watermelons? No?
That was the advanced. I went to the beginner class. I'm sure, you might get some watermelons and bricks and
gallery style.
Yeah. And then we also have some girls 5-6 recreational basketball footage for you. So that's what we have coming up, and I hope you enjoyed the show and enjoyed kind of getting to know Becky Rule before she's coming to our town, and having a great show with Tim Samples. So that's pretty much it for our calendar and our show. And
thank you very much for the calendar. And if anybody out there has any ideas or suggestions for story leads, or you want to be on the show, we can share. We have no problem with that.
No.
Give us a call. Give us your ideas. We'd love to have as many people in town as possible involved in the show. It's about Deerfield. It's about what's happening in Deerfield, hence the name. So we'd love to have your ideas, comments, suggestions, and thoughts. And until next time, and for Eric Almeida, my name is Joe Manzi. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on What's Happening in Deerfield.
Thanks, Deerfield.
Good job. Ooh. Be like,
I always forget.
Who is that person next to you?
I'm usually the one talking.
Hands up. Nice. Good job behind you. Good job, Ash. Get in here. Help her out.